Welcome to video 3 of series 3, and first off I'll start by explaining the UI and then go ahead and set up a simple scene. The first time you start up Unity, well, you need to make a new project, and mine looks all filled up because I've been using it, but what you need to do is, well, I guess first log in and then create a new project. So I've just clicked on new there, choose a place to save it, and it's going to be a 3D project. And we can also select asset packages to start with as well. But I'm just going to assume that, for example, I forgot to do it or you forgot to do it, to select them here. So forget about that. Instead I'll import them from within Unity when it's open. I'll just give you a project a name. So I think I might call mine, well, GTGD S3. Or maybe I should call it Chapter 1. Maybe I'll call it Chapter 1. Maybe I won't. Anyhow, I'll just create it. Right, so it'll just take a moment for it to load. Once it's done so, your layout won't look like this. This is not the default layout. So this is how it will look the first time you've started it. And I like to reorganize it. So I'll explain the windows briefly. You have a scene view. This is where you manipulate things in your scene. And well, I think I'll get into that in just a bit. There's a game view. This is what you see when you're playing the game. So the scene view is where you manipulate stuff inside the game before you play it. And the game view is where you see it from playing. Then the hierarchy is whatever's in the scene. So currently there's a main camera there. I can move it around from the scene view. And there's a directional light as well. The inspector on the far right side allows you to change the properties of stuff, and this project panel down here, well, that's your Windows folder structure, so you can right click on it and show in Explorer, and it'll show the folders in Windows itself. Well, I need to reorganize that because I don't really like this layout too much. So first of all, I'll move the hierarchy panel over here. I'll take the project panel, I'll move it over there. The console, I'll drop it into there like that. The console is where you get error messages or warning messages or just general messages, and you may create some of your own. In fact, we will in the next video. Okay, I'll take the game view and I'll just dock it down here. Alright. And I just like to set it to 16:9 aspect ratio because that's what my monitor is. So I can see exactly what I would see as I'm setting it up. Okay. Move that, move that. Alright, so it's set up, and now I'll save this layout. So I'll save it, I'll give it a name, so go to Layouts, Save Layout. I'll call it, say, Chapter 1. You could give it a more meaningful name, like Development Layout, or something like that, because you can make more layouts. Maybe you might want a specific layout for when you're playing, so that you get a bigger window, which would make a lot of sense, and maybe you might have the two scenes, windows side by side, but that's totally up to you. Alright, so I've saved my window layout, and so now I can just change it at any time, so I can go back to default, or I can go to the layout that I just saved. Now to start with, I need to import some packages. So I want to import, let's see, the characters package. So I'll do that. So you just click on it and then hit import. And just pay attention to what is getting imported. Well, this is more important when you're getting stuff from the asset store. For example, if you purchased a package that has that will overwrite your input settings and stuff, you might want to be very careful about that and not just import it directly into a project that you're working on. Otherwise, all your settings will get overwritten. So you would do that in a clean project and then just bring over what you want, or just not import the stuff that will overwrite. So that's just a note. This is what you'll find later on as you're working and getting more packages and looking at stuff. So I'll just hang on for a moment while this is importing. These are the default pre-built characters to make stuff easy for us. Okay, so that's done. And I like to also change the folders so that they become small and it takes up less space, like that. You can see more. Now I'm not finished. I want to import some more packages. So what else should I get? I should also get the prototyping package. Alright, I'll do that. So once again, yeah, I know it's alright, so I'll just import it. Okay, done. And you can see them appearing here, characters, prototyping. And I'm also going to import the Visual Studio 2015 tool. So we won't do any coding in this video. In the next we will, but I'll just import it now so I've got it there already. Okay, now that's done, I want to actually bring in something from the prototyping folder. So there's things called prefabs. Go to the prefabs folder. Anything that you save from the scene into a folder is a prefab. Anything in the scene is called a game object. So that's the Unity terminology. So it's all new to you. So just take it in slowly. Alright, so I want to put in some platforms. So I'm going to look for the largest platform. I have already used it before, so I ought to know what it is. So it's a floor prototype, 64 by 1 by 64. So that's the width, height, and, well, length. Alright, so I'll drop it in. I can drop it into the hierarchy panel. I can drop it in to the scene view. By dropping it into the scene view, I can position where I want it to be, but it'll never be wherever I want it to be anyway. So whatever, I'll just drop it in and then just reset the position. So to set the 0 position to 0, 0, 0, a quick way to do it is to just set reset position from the cog here. And for some reason there's a rotation as well. I don't want any rotation, so I'll get rid of that. And this transform here, well, that is a class under this game object that allows you to manipulate its position, rotation, and scale, and you'll be using it forever, as so long as you're developing in Unity. And then there are other components within the game object, this one that we brought in. There's a renderer. This is what allows you to see anything. And it's got a mesh as well. A default mesh would be just a box in this case, probably. Yes. Oh no, it's got its own mesh that would have been developed in a 3D program, developing program, a model program like 3ds Max or Maya or Blender, something like that. Okay. And then it's got a collider, a box collider. A collider is what allows physics interactions. Well, basically, when you have a collider, you've got a player on it, the player won't go through the floor. So that's what a collider is for, collision. And then the renderer has a material as well. And you can see that here, and it's also shown below here. You can edit the material directly. And I guess they also have textures as well. But anyway, don't worry about all that. That's all for later. Okay, so now that I've got this in here, why don't I go ahead and drop in a player, because I imported this characters package, and I'm interested in the first-person characters, prefabs. I'm interested in the FPS controller, so put that in. That is the one that we're going to develop upon. So this gives us a nice starting base of features of being able to move around, but it's far away from what we need for S3, but at least it gives us a good start. So it's got a lot of components on it as well, 5 components, and they're unique in its own way. So the character controller is unique to this type of game object. It's developed by Unity, and it allows for all that behavior. But anyway, I'm going off track. I will reset the position of it as well. I'll just check that it's not sitting halfway in the floor. You can see that it is. Just look at it. You can see that it is sitting in the floor like that. And I want to lift it up so that there's no chance of the player falling through the floor. And I can test that if that'll happen just by hitting the play button. And actually it doesn't, so it's fine. It puts the player up above. You can see a warning. Well, it's not a warning message, it's just a general message saying there are 2 audio listeners in the scene, and to make sure that there's only one, that's because every camera has one, and the player controller has a camera attached to it. And that's the one I want, so I'm going to disable this main camera. So if the actual component that it's complaining about is the audio listener, so I could in theory just turn this off and then there'll be no message, but that won't actually solve my problem. See, it's gone. That won't solve my problem. See, there's no point having 2 cameras rendering exactly the same scene with all the same sort of settings, the culling masks, which you'll come to later. That's just wasted performance, so I'm better off just turning off the main camera itself. That's it. The game object is disabled. It's in the scene, but it does nothing. And instead, I'll just be using the camera that's on the first-person character, and you can already basically play around by moving, jumping, sprinting, and so on. It's a pre-built character. and I'll just stop that, and so that I can go through the other stuff. So what I also needed to tell you was that inside the scene view you can move stuff around. So you can move this up and down. You can see it changing over here as well as I move it. And you just use Control Z to undo anything. Now I like to move things in a like with units. So to do that you need to have snapping. So just check the snap settings. I have them at 111, which is okay for this. To move something snapping to the grid, first of all, turn on the translate widget. So there's a couple here. This is just for panning the scene view. This is for actually moving the object around. There's a rotation one as well. There's a scaling as well. And there's also this. This is for the, I guess the UI rather, or colliders as well. And then you can also, I guess, well, we won't need that for now. And then you can also check which axis the game object is in by clicking on the axis setting. This is important, not now. This asset has been set up correctly, and its axis, the local axis, matches the global. But I could, for example, turn it around. Actually, why don't I just do that so you can understand? So I'll do that. Alright, so there its axis has changed, but if I change it back to global, it's facing in that direction. That tells you that this is Unity's global axis. This is the direction stuff normally faces. So the blue is the forwards, red is to the right, and green is up. So just remember that, because you'll use that in code as well. But I'll set it back to local, and that shows me which way it's facing locally. Alright, but anyway, I can just set that back to 0. It really doesn't matter at the moment. There are also other useful buttons here. For example, you can switch to 2D mode, which is useful for playing around with the UI when you're creating a UI. And then there's the sun button, which is the lights. So you can turn them on and off, sounds, and I guess so on. Right, and I don't use these too much, but they're there too. Okay, so I was going to tell you that if you hold down Control and you move an object, it will move by your snap setting. Okay, so I'll do that. Right, so I'll hit play again, and I'll just run off the edge of the map so that you can see what happens, and well, there you go, the player will fall, and they'll fall forever, perhaps until you somehow run out of memory. Then the game will crash. I don't know what that is because I haven't tried that out and I'm not likely to. So something to also note is any changes you make in the game view, you should just remember that they won't be saved when you exit the game view. So when you stop playing, everything will get reset. So if you did move something in while playing, the trick is you just copy it, and then when you stop playing, you can paste it in. And then it will be at that position and rotation where it was when you were in the game view. So just remember that. That's just a common technique to just, well, keep things that you liked from the game view while you were playing and you thought that position, that looked actually quite right. That's how you do it. So you just copy it and paste it back in. Okay, and to save, well, we need to save a scene. We need a scene. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do a bit of folder management here. So I'm going to create a folder. I am going to call this, I could call it GTGD S3. Why don't I do that? And I'm going to drop in these two folders. Don't move the editor folder. That has to be at the top level. But I'll drop these other two folders inside of the S3 folder so that things are tidier. And now inside of the S3 folder, I'm going to make a new folder. And I'm going to call it My Scenes. Alright, and I'm going to save the scene in here. So File, Save Scene As, inside of S3, inside of My Scenes. I'm going to just call it Game. You can call it anything. Okay, and so that's the game scene. And you can build and run the game. You can say File, Build Settings, Add Current Scene. And before I do that, because I have the Pro Edition, I can do this. I might as well show you in case you have it too. So it was in the player settings. I'll just turn off Show Unity Splash Screen so it doesn't waste time doing that. And go back here to my build settings. It's set up for me. I'm using PC Mac standalone, a standalone build, PC build. Okay, build and run. And then it'll ask me where do I want to put it. I'll make a new folder. Why don't I do that? I'll call it Built. and then put it inside of here. I can call it anything. I'll just call it built and start. I now have my game built, and I can change the resolution to what I want. I want it windowed, I don't want it to be full screen, just for this sake, for this case. And there we go, I'm in, and there you go. I've developed my game, and well, it's not a very good game, it's actually rubbish. Anyway, that's it. So that's how you build a game. Well, build and run the program that you've developed, the game that you've developed. Now, there isn't enough floor space, so I am going to just duplicate this a bit. So I just hit Control D, I selected it, I hit Control D, and I should have explained to you as well that to move around inside the scene view, it's just like FPS controls. First of all, you just hold down right click in your scene view, then you can look around, and then you press your WASD keys to move around in it. If you hold down Shift, you move a lot faster inside the scene view. So that's a way of getting around inside the scene view. And you can use your mouse wheel to also zoom in, zoom out. And I showed you here, there's also the pan tool. And that's basically a way to do it. If you want to focus on a particular object, that's in your scene, you select it. Oh, I also like to just, when I'm doing stuff in the scene, I just like to make that small too. When you want to focus on something, you can press the F key. So you can select something and press the F key to focus on it. Okay? Alright, so now that I've done that, I want to set up a grid of these floors. Now, perspective view, which is the default, which is what it is, which is what you will be playing in as well for an FPS game, its perspective view isn't so good for placing stuff. So click on this gizmo here, just click on the box, and it turns into ISO view. And then I want a top view, so click on the green axis, and that'll look from above. Okay, that's perfect. And once again, hit the translate tool, and I can now move it. So I will hold Control down and move it. Right, so you can see it's moving in one unit increments. Okay, it's done. That's exactly where I wanted it. I'll duplicate Control D, and again hold Control down and move it. Okay, done. Now I'll make a copy of 3, so holding Control down, all 3 of them. I'll hit Control D, and I'll then hold Control now and move all 3 while they're selected. Okay, I think I've positioned that correctly. I will press Control D to duplicate again, and just move these as well. Alright, done. So I think that's large enough for the example that we're going to have. So in Chapter 3, I'm just going to run you through the basics Unity and some of the basics of coding and just some simple examples. And after Chapter 1 is complete, then we'll start the actual Series 3 content. But you need to do that. If you're new to game development, you need to follow this Chapter 1. Absolutely. Otherwise, you'll have no idea what's going on when I get into the Chapter 2. Alright. Once you've done that, create an empty game object, because you can see the hierarchy is getting filled up with stuff, and it's really messy. Well, I'm going to call this floors. I'll just call this game object floors. And I'm going to just change its position. I'm going to reset its position so that it's in a decent place in the center. By the way, if you hit the reset button, the name will get reset too, so don't hit that. Hit the reset position. And then I'm just going to shift select all of these and then just drag them into floors. Okay, and there you go, scene management. Okay, so why don't I play it now? I'll just increase the size of that. I'll save my scene, so Control S, please do that. You never know when the engine might crash when you're working, so always save, otherwise you might lose your work. Okay, so there we go. It's a lot bigger now, and there's a lot more to run through. Okay, there's something else you need to know. You need another window. So window, it's called lighting. So pull up the lighting window and dock it anywhere. I'm going to just put it over here besides the inspector because there's space to do so. You need to know this because it may bother you, because sometimes the light mapping, as it's called, it's pre-baking of the lighting, can get a bit strange in Unity 5. It can do some strange things and become dark and take a long time to build the light mapping. So if that happens, what you need to do is well, in my case it's auto, and yours will be auto as well. So for example, if you're changing, adding stuff to the scene, you may also find that the light maps continues to build over and over and over, and it's eating up processing power because you're doing it auto, it's happening live. If you don't want to do that, turn off auto. Just remember that, and then manually bake it. So you just hit build, and then the light map will get built automatically, and then your scene will be properly lit up, because that can happen. So I'm just pointing that out. So for example, if you turn on the lights, well, you didn't see any difference there, but I'm just telling you that it happens, and so don't freak out if that happens. Just remember there's a lighting panel, and you need to just manually bake it while you're working away if you don't want it constantly grinding away, rebuilding the light mapping for no good reason, because you don't need to really until you're releasing a game, or you really are worried that you're at the art stage and you need to see how it looks. And we'll come to these settings later, much later, so not now, it's not important. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. We've got a basic scene setup. I've gone through the basics of the Unity UI. You've seen how to set it up. You understand how to navigate around inside the scene view. Oh, and by the way, just click on that to go back to perspective mode. Oh, I probably did forget to mention that when you're moving around with WASD, you can also go up and down. You hit Q to go down while you've got the right click. So remember, right click, Q to go down, and E to go up. So just remember that as well. Alright, so that's it for this video. In the next video, we'll start writing some code. So I'll show you the basics of writing a script, and that will be where it starts to get interesting. Alright, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.